they're marketing to, like I said, a very specific person, where it's like an older guy, maybe they've got money and everything like that, so Bitcoin just doesn't seem cool. It's like, all right, like I'm gonna have my wife and kids and I'm gonna, stack Bitcoin on the side. Where I think, like, holistically,
that's better.
That's a best message to put out.
Yes.
But to a kid coming out of college, that message does not resonate with them.
For episode 178, Convos on the Pedicab, we're doing something new, and we're actually going to be rolling through the streets of Austin while having this fun discussion with my buddy Brandon Keys, CEO of Green Candle Investments. He has a very popular YouTube channel. He interviews a ton of very prominent Bitcoiners. His channel is blowing up.
Yeah, man, yeah. So, I mean, it's just in tune, just in line with the bear market. Bitcoin price goes up, man, the green candles come out, right?
I like that. It was also very smart to build this thing during a bear market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I started Green Candle like April 21. So, I was coming off the heels of a bull market, and when I was just starting, so I kind of had no choice. Like I joined the hype crew in April 21, and then everything kind of fell apart right as I was starting it. And so here we are. Kept at it and didn't give up, so I guess I've paid my dues now.
I think these past 2 years, a lot of people kind of wind up paying their dues.
Yeah, 1,000%. But I mean, Bitcoin does what it does, man. We're here, we're proving ourselves right, and I mean, we're here ahead for a huge 25, I think. So
I think you're going to have a very tumultuous 2025, and I also think you're going to have an awful 2026.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of in line with that. We'll see, man. To be honest with you, I think we're going to see a big asset bubble where we're going to see, like, interest rates come down to near zero with Trump in office. And, man, prices are going to explode. But the underlying economy, man, we're not done with inflation yet. So I think it's going to be interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more money printing coming on in 26 to kind of avoid that, downturn that we're predicting here.
No, I actually disagree. I think what's going to happen is this. I think Jerome Powell's actually, despite all the hate he's gotten, he's actually he did a terrible job in 2021, but I think so far he's done pretty well at managing inflation, managing markets, doing what he's been able to do in his like kind of limited capacity with how fucked up everything has gotten, largely due to him. But he's done a pretty good job of at least trying to unfuck up a lot of what he did. You're seeing inflation go down. You are seeing a lot of the doctoring of different things, right? Like in terms of how they structure the CPI, in terms of like what they're putting in the food, the diluting of nutritional quality in a lot of your food to make it look like prices are going down and whatnot, right? So I think that's a factor. But I think this next CPI print, it's on Thursday. I think it's going to be a really good print. I think it's going to cause them to continue lowering rates. I think that if Trump is able to do what he wants to do and he has good people involved, there is still a chance that inflation could kind of wind up going down, at least in Q1 as well, which could also be in tune with an asset bubble. And then once the rates kind of get to zero or get close to zero, then you'll see an uptick in inflation. And this uptick will start kind of hitting its stride at the end of Q4 and 25, which will cause them to probably have to raise rates, which will be one factor that'll send the price back down 70% in a correction.
Yeah, so here's where I'll disagree with you on that. I mean, I agree with you on, like, Powell doing a good job, but inflation's not under wraps. Like, the CPI prints that we're getting look good on paper.
That's what I'm saying. They look good, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, in August, if you go to, it's a great website. You should check it out. It's called govflation.com. It'll show you how they calculated CPI back in 1982. I think the first revision post-gold standard was 1987, so you can kind of see it. But in August of this year, they reported a 2.5% inflation print. But if you look back on how they would do the basket of goods back in August, it was still over 10%. So inflation is not under wraps and not even close. And I think businesses, people in general, are feeling it still. And I think because of that, that's where we do need to keep interest rates at a high rate. And Powell's going to be pressured by Trump, pressured by all these people to lower interest rates a lot, which will send asset prices shooting up. So I think the wealth gap's going to kind of increase, and the lowering of interest rates is just another form of quantitative easing, which is, essentially money printing, right? So, I mean, I don't see how, we don't end up in, a bad spot because of the pressures that Powell is going to face to, essentially lower interest rates. And in order to kind of put a Band-Aid on the wound, it's always money printing. It always leads to that.
Yes.
So that's why I think, the only saving grace that we potentially have is the Bitcoin strategic reserve that, Trump and his team are proposing, depending on how much they get into it and how much they're, willing to purchase in Bitcoin. That is, I think, the only way that we can kind of combat inflation here, because, Bitcoin is going up faster than inflation is on paper, but I think, as we know, Bitcoin is just kind of, going up as quickly as, the fiat dollar system will. So, yeah, I mean, I think long story short, asset bubble in 25, which would be good for everybody in Bitcoin and the strategic reserve. But in the long term, we're still in the fiat system, so we're going to still see these waves of ups and downs, which I think we're both kind of anticipating here in 26 time of another downturn.
And doesn't Powell's term run out in 26?
That I don't know.
I believe it
so.
runs out in 26.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see, too, is inflation start ticking up to what we were talking about. Once it starts ticking up in 26, because Powell has to leave anyway, I can see Powell raising rates, and everything has been so politicized that it's a midterm year. Raising rates in a midterm election year after a massive asset bubble, after the wealth gap between rich and poor is going to become even more astronomical, and because of the anti-Trump sentiment. Imagine they buy into a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and then you get a massive bear market in 2026. It's going to look terrible for Trump. It's going to look terrible for Republicans. And what could also happen as a result is that these typical 70% drawdowns, they're going to coincide with this election, and they're going to be fodder for Democrats to kind of reclaim majorities in both houses going forward for the last 2 years of Trump's term. So I'm just kind of thinking ahead as to what I think could happen, and I think it's just important to think ahead, because no matter what happens, Bitcoin kind of goes to infinity. But in the process of going to infinity, maybe Bitcoin tops at 200,000, but 1 year from now we're sitting at 65 or 70K. I think if people are aware of that, you're planning for that, and then your life gets exponentially better, versus if people get too caught up into this hype, the Bitcoin hype, and also the crypto hype, which is even worse. Because Bitcoin hype is not bad, right? Unless you're doing it on leverage or overdoing it. But if people get too caught up into the crypto hype, or they think that this is going to go up forever, and then all of a sudden the regular, everyday, normal person who's never been through a cycle, combine that with the reserve, if the price drops, if rates start going up, right? Or if they take forever to prolong Trump's appointments, because a lot of Trump's appointments, they're going to have to do a lot of shock to the dollar or to the economy. And ideally, you kind of want the shock to happen in Q1. And if the shock happens in Q1, it's good because it recovers, and then Trump is kind of good for midterms. But if they take a while to do the confirmations, and these asset bubbles continue running hot, and things don't start rolling until Q2 or Q3, you could be in for a massive problem in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, where Powell is going to want to, I don't know if he's going to make this his last term, or he's going to want to kind of stay in power and kind of continue it that way. And, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I just think the strategic reserve is very important for Bitcoin as a whole. And you mentioned it falling down to 60 or 70. Now, here's why I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to crash down, but I don't know, past 25, if we ever see below 100K Bitcoin again. And that's because, we do have retail or, hedge funds coming in and everything like that, which are more of, I would call the paper hands, right? But we've had a lot of the Bitcoin hodlers come in who are basically holding it forever, going to zero. We have people like Michael Saylor continuing to, purchase up Bitcoin. And then we're going to have governments, and we have a nation-state arms race essentially coming on where, strategic reserves in governments, they're not going to be just pumping and dumping like maybe, hedge funds are. They're going to be researching and holding on to it for the long term. And those are the bigger buyers. That's where we've never seen money like this come into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, the downturn, we're definitely still going to have one. I'm not trying to say that we're not going to have cycles anymore. But I think, we're at a minimum, at a floor, I think we see 250K next year. And then past that, I think, maybe we get down to the 150s again. But, we don't know how much money could actually start to come in. I mean, China is already saying Bitcoin is now personal property opposed to, outlawing Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining years ago because of what the U.S. is doing. Brazil's proposing a strategic reserve. Russia's thinking about getting in. I mean, just think about and then we had Microsoft today. Microsoft voted no on having Bitcoin as a reserve asset on their balance sheet. But, I mean, it's the second biggest market cap company there is, and they're talking about Bitcoin. Amazon shareholders are proposing it. I don't think we've seen the kind of FOMO that we're seeing now, where we're going to have the big ups, we're going to have the bigger ups, but I think the downturn isn't going to be quite as drastic because I think the upturn on this cycle is going to be something like we've never seen before.
What do you think is going to be by next year?
I think at a minimum, the floor, I'm going to give you a wide range, but the minimum I think is at least 250K, where I think the max could be upwards of like 850K with the amount of money that we're going to see pouring in. And I guess that's like an 800% increase, 850% increase from where we're at. So it's insane. We haven't seen this since like the early Bitcoin days, but you got to think about how much, the U.S. alone is talking about buying up 1 million Bitcoin in a year. Michael Saylor and Satoshi are the only two people that have 1 million Bitcoin. And the U.S. is going to be another guy who's pumping it in. And Saylor's been doing this over 3 or 4 years. And the U.S. is looking to do that all in 1 year. Russia is now tossing the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve around. I think it's just going to become an arms race, like I'm saying, and, there's not going to be a whole lot of Bitcoin to go around.
I agree. During the bear market in 2022, Michael Saylor's company also lost about 90% of its value from its all-time high. And I could also see that becoming a reoccurring thing because Michael Saylor is also leveraging his shares to buy Bitcoin, right? And so once MicroStrategy reaches a certain amount, there's going to be a massive also amount of selling MicroStrategy stock. And it increases the cash balance of MicroStrategy. And what will also happen too is if MicroStrategy goes down, right, there's going to be some FUD created off of that. There could also be, so many of the ETFs are custodied on Coinbase. If Coinbase has a major attack vector that it experiences, or let's say Coinbase I don't think Coinbase is, but let's say another exchange, maybe not a Coinbase, but maybe like a Uniswap or Phantom or some of these other like DeFi quote unquote exchanges have like the same type of liquidity problems that FTX had or like Luna had back in 2022. You definitely have things that could be kind of set in motion for another one more time 70% correction. You see, if you go on X right now, very few people comparatively are talking about Bitcoin, and a lot more people are talking about memes and shitcoins. Like the behavior of retail still has not changed, and when the behavior hasn't changed, a lot shitcoinery still gets popularized. We're still conflating shitcoins with Bitcoin. The average everyday person. Just look at what happened with Haktua coin. You got these idiots. In one of my posts where I talked to this like political analyst from Austin, where he like made fun of me about the city accepting Bitcoin for taxes, which now it's not crazy because the U.S. is doing it as a reserve. He wrote a whole article making fun of me about this. Now we cross 100K, and people in my comments are saying that Bitcoin and Haktua coin are the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people still feel that way. So all it takes is like one exchange to kind of like have a solvency crisis, which will send the price down tremendously. There could be an issue there could be some kind of an issue regarding Coinbase. There could be a lot of anti-Trump sentiments with the BlackRocks, with the Fidelities, with the big hedge funds, because if their goal still is globalism, great way to sabotage Trump's midterm and sabotage government efficiency and sabotage a lot of these things. No better way than to tank the price of Bitcoin if this becomes a big feature of his campaign. I'm just saying that there are factors in play that could lead to a 70% drawdown.
No,
from the all-time high.
100%.
That's all I'm saying. Like there
No,
are factors that will lead to that.
I mean, I believe that 100%. I definitely think that there's.
But
a
we're
lot
not
of
close to that. We're not close to that now.
Yeah. I think like it's all kind of speculation. I mean, my thought process is just like governments are going to have more of they're not going to be out here trading, trying to get more and more Bitcoin with every single waking act, right? Like with every single swing up and down, you get a lot of traders, you get a lot of options,
a lot of leverage. There's going to be a lot of people trading on leverage
too. The thing is like the derivatives market, like options, just started on Bitcoin too. So like the swings up and down, we haven't even seen anything like that. Like they theoretically the options market and what is out there is $1 quadrillion. Like they say it's anywhere from 600 trillion to 1 quadrillion. So that's the biggest market that there is. The options just started on Bitcoin spot ETF, the iBet, like earlier this month, or like in November. So like it's been around for a month, and we've had the holiday season. So we haven't even really started to see the hot times for.
Oh, the Santa Claus rally is about to be fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Like especially, I think that. What do you think Bitcoin closes the month at?
I mean, if we get over 125K by the end of this year, I would be very surprised. I think like it's going to be something where we just kind of start to see like a little bit of a track up. I don't think we're going to get much over like 110. Like maybe we'll have a 10% month or something like that. Still solid for like a single month, right? But it's nothing absolutely crazy or astronomical or anything like that. I don't know if we're going to have because we just saw such a big November. I think a lot of people are going to be wary and be like, oh, I missed the boat. And then, come the new year, when people kind of start to figure out what their taxes are looking like and everything like that, that's when we're going to see a big time rally.
I can see that. I think February of Q1, I think it's a good time to take a little bit of profits for big life improvements only.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're still in a fiat-denominated world, right? I mean, the whole point of Bitcoin and, saving in Bitcoin is to improve your life, improve the way that you're spending your own time so you can do more fun things and, just your quality of life improves. So I'm not going to hate anybody that takes any profits to, we were talking about this, beforehand, improve your backyard or do something like that because, this is what you're not bringing your Bitcoin to your grave with you. I mean, maybe there's some psychopaths out there that are doing that, but most people want to, be able to utilize their money and, for fun activities, travel, do some things here or there. So, I definitely think that it's going to increase, but I also think, all throughout 25, we're going to see a big increase. So if you could hold on for a little bit towards the end, I would try to wait, towards the end of the year to see if you can really take some and make some bigger profits.
What do you think the topping signals though are in a market?
Well, I think you'll see them when they're there, right? I think it'll be
though,
historically it's always when the topping signals are when the meme coins craze is at an all-time high. I don't even think we're close to that. The only big meme that I'm really seeing around here is the Hawk Tua coin, which a lot of people some people got fooled with that, but at the same time I think a lot of people just are all right, here's the start of the influencer stuff that we've seen previously. So I don't think it's absolutely huge that we're in there just yet, but like I said, we saw last time we saw Jake Paul, all these other influencers make these meme tokens, and Jake Paul was buying Pokemon cards and seeing that craze. We're not even close to that yet, right? We saw a big run up in Bitcoin in 1 month. Really, a lot of the return for Bitcoin came in November
due to the election largely.
Yeah. But historically,
that happens in November anyway. November's always a good month.
Yeah,
especially in election in halving years. November's always a good month.
Yeah, November's historic average return is 45%. Even with the Trump bump, we only went up 38 or 39% in the month of November. So it was below average. So I don't. It's also right. It's more money. The higher the market cap, the volatility is harder to get when it gets bigger. I get all those points. So Trump definitely helped with that, but at the same time, it's it was a big bump, but not even close to as big as that we normally see, which is kind of crazy to say.
You think we would have had a similar bump if Kamala won?
So I think for Kamal, I think Bitcoin would have done well either way, but for different reasons.
I agree with that.
I think Kamala, it would do well because she would basically just like hyperinflate the market. Trump's going to do well because I think we're having like a big asset bubble as we kind of lined out, which will make the rich get richer. But I mean, like at the same time, like you want an assets to increase because more people are going to be willing to invest in businesses, hire people for jobs. Like assets increasing are usually a positive thing. So it's some people will say, oh, that's the rich getting richer and Trump's going to help pump the rich people's bags. Kamala would do the same thing. Let's not get that right.
It would be a different type of rich person.
Exactly. It would be the rich Democrat where their assets are increasing, and then they're helping out the wrong causes where tax money's not going to the right place. Here, its assets are increasing, and we're going to decrease the amount of taxation that is on people and businesses in order to invest more in people and businesses. So, a little different strategies, but I think like in the end, Trump's is better for the strength of the dollar and for asset prices. So. Whereas Kamala would just hyperinflate the dollar away.
I also think that if Kamala won, Bitcoin would kind of have a 10% drop like immediately afterwards. But then everyone would say, oh, wait, we're going to print up a fuck ton of money. I have no faith in our government or in our fiat system anymore. I am running for the exits. And so I think like you'd see a similar Bitcoin price just because people would be racing to the exits. Whereas now Bitcoin is becoming inculcated in the financial system. Or that's going to be like the ultimate bull case for Bitcoin is like the ingratiation into the financial system, which is, I think, a very good thing.
Yeah, I mean, like we're like halfway there, right? Because like in the financial system, right, what do we need? We need ETFs, right? We need options. We need hedge funds buying on. There's a lot of the big hedge fund guys that are getting really ingratiated into Bitcoin now that are buying up. But we literally have billions of dollars flowing into these ETFs every single week. Billions moving every single week into Bitcoin. And that can't be hyped up enough, right? Because we've seen now hedge funds, but now imagine potentially trillions getting flown into it weekly with hedge funds putting billions into it and countries, nation states throwing billions into it as well. So,
and then billions and then trillions.
Yeah, exactly.
Right after, yes. I do think that there's going to be a huge gap between wealth and rich and poor, and it's only going to get exacerbated. I think that the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO is kind of like the first step in the psyop to really like that's going to be the big news narrative these next 2 years is how big the gap versus the rich and poor is, and they're going to start associating Bitcoin with something that only the very rich have. And I think that you're also going to start seeing a lot of shitcoin mania like never before because so many people that didn't want to get into Bitcoin think it's too late. And so now they're going to take even riskier bets. They're going to become even more nihilistic. They're going to be more susceptible towards falling for scams. And I think that a lot of people are going to get wrecked and wiped out. And the mainstream media and the establishment, they're going to associate Bitcoin with that, and I think there's an obligation for like that all of us have to try to disassociate Bitcoin from a lot of these affinity scams.
Well, see, I think this is the problem with like Bitcoin's marketing, right? I mean, it's like Bitcoiners are just terrible marketers. So like I think there's a difference in this cycle though, because I think people like Dave Portnoy from Barstool, he just had Michael Saylor on, right? He got into the Safe Moon hype, like did all this shit coining, and now he's openly saying like, I'm not falling for any of these shit coins anymore. There's nothing like that. It's Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. And I think like he's going to play a very important role in this. And other big time influencers are also, who are like influential people, not just, Bitcoiners, are going to play a bigger role than Michael Saylor has played in the past for Bitcoin because they're going to bring people to Bitcoin and Bitcoin only because they've gotten wrecked in the shitcoin stuff. I still think that there's going to be people that are going to dabble in shitcoins, right? I mean, there's no escaping that. Trump is
didn't we talk about this on one of our episodes where I showed it was during the primary where I'm like, have you seen Trump's crypto wallet?
Yeah. Well, I saw his crypto wallet come out. I don't think that, I saw it on X. I don't think that's his actual crypto wallet.
Okay.
Because it's just like his crypto wallet is literally like ilovetrump.eth. It's
that
like,
does
all
not
right,
sound like his crypto wallet.
Why would you put that as your name if it's your own wallet? Like, it doesn't really make sense. And he owns no Bitcoin in there, and he's proposing a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So,
although this was pre all that. This was before Trump started really taking the orange pill.
Yeah.
And I was a DeSantis person, and I think that like a lot of what Trump's been doing lately has kind of made me like a lot more bullish on Trump, and I grew to like, rekindle my faith in his leadership.
Yeah.
This past year or so, if that makes sense.
No, I mean I'm with you on that. Yeah, so I mean I just think like there's gonna be bigger influential people that maybe dabble in some shit coins. But I think like Andrew Tate's getting really into Bitcoin. Maybe he dabbles a little bit. But
He definitely dabbles.
Yeah, but
he has his own coin.
Yeah.
He has his own shit coin, dude.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is like these people are going to like bigger people are getting wrecked. So like Jake Paul last time got wrecked on all the shitcoin tokens. We saw like Justin Bieber, all these NBA players get their own NFTs. They got wrecked. I think a lot more people get wrecked on these things that are bigger and influential. They're not going to go to the other bullshit tokens, and they're going to go to Bitcoin and Bitcoin only because it's the true one that just sticks around the entire time.
It does. We get, you know what I noticed too about Bitcoiners, about us?
Yeah.
Is that we never really seem to win. Unless you just factor in quality of life, right? Because in bear markets we're seen as reckless idiots buying the speculative assets.
Yeah.
And in bull markets we're seen as pussies making safe investments.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you know what I mean?
It's a nature of the beast, right? I mean, but that's where I just think it's like the Bitcoin has its marketing problems, right? It's like, Bitcoiners talk about eating, just doing carnivore, right? Like no drinking, no like having like sunning your balls, all this kind of stuff. And that's really marketing to like a niche person, right? I mean, like look at like, I don't know, like the big people, like I already named Dave Portnoy, right? Like Barstool. Like how did Barstool become so big? What did they do? They marketed using like parties, drinking, and hot chicks. Like that's the one thing crypto scammers are very good at. They're very good at like being flashy, showing all their money, and having hot chicks around them. The problem with Bitcoiners is like a lot of us are just nerdy and we just don't have any hot chicks around.
No, I don't think that's it.
I
see you with plenty of women in your Instagram.
Yeah, I mean that's me.
Bro, women love you. What are you talking about?
That's me.
Do you not go to the comments like how beautiful everyone's wives are at the Bitcoin events?
But that's the thing is like all these guys, they're beautiful. They have beautiful wives and everything like that.
And they're in the best shape, and they're better. And the physiognomy of Bitcoiners is way different than the physiognomy of shitcoiners.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that 100%. But the problem is those guys are not. They're marketing to like I said, a very specific person, where it's like an older guy. Maybe they've got money and everything like that. So Bitcoin just doesn't seem cool. It's like, all right, like I'm gonna have my wife and kids, and I'm gonna, stack Bitcoin on the side. Where I think, like holistically, that's better. That's a best message to put out.
Yes.
But to a kid coming out of college, that message does not resonate with them.
It does not, which is also why abortion became such a popular issue.
Yeah.
Because now I'm older. I'm like 38 years old. I'm going to be 39.
Damn, you're old as shit.
I'm old. I look pretty good, though, for my age. Right?
Yeah, I know. I'm fucking with you.
I do. I
you do.
Like you, actually.
Yeah. No, you think you?
Yeah.
How old do you think I am?
25, 26?
No, I'm 30.
All right, 30. Okay, I still look younger than you.
Yeah.
If people saw us walking down the street, they would think that I was younger, or they wouldn't be surprised if I said I was younger.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just because you don't have a beard.
Perhaps.
I think if I were to shave my beard, I think people would think I'm a lot younger.
I also don't have to set I also have the luxury of not really having to set alarm clocks.
Yeah.
Which is very nice and very awesome.
Yeah.
Although you don't have to set alarm clocks, do you?
Well, now I'm officially full-time Green Candle. First time on the podcast where I'm full-time Green Candle, so there we go.
So, but it's your company, right? So you get to still make your own rules.
Oh,
Although I am doing the show Monday and Wednesday called The Mean Show. You got to hop in.
Okay.
Where there's a Trump impersonator, a Kamala impersonator.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's an RFK
Similar to like the
impersonator.
Kill Tony kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's actually better, and I think it's actually a better form of SNL. I think that Bitcoin and using better money increases like the quality of everything, right? And I think that's the difference between Bitcoin and shitcoins. I think shitcoins, you can make a lot more money a lot quicker than you ever would with Bitcoin. Like, if you buy Bitcoin right now, you will never be you're not going to be an instant millionaire. You're going to be a millionaire in 20 years.
No, exactly. And I mean, just back to the point, right, is like that's why people are getting into gambling a ton, right? I mean, like, gambling is taking off in this country like nothing we've ever seen before as well. And why is that? It's because like these people, like they're just good at marketing. I mean, I think that's just like everything in life is marketing and sales.
No, it's because we've been so demoralized by our education system,
it's
by fiat money, by Wall Street, by entertainment, by being raised in single-parent homes, by modern feminism. We have degenerated our society to a point where if you look at videos like the Lost in Time videos from the 1800s and the 1920s, like you see the optimism in people's faces and the way they carry themselves, even people's physiognomy, even like the architecture. Like if we had continued on our path while having a gold standard, and continued on our path that we had laid out in the 1890s or the early 1900s, the turn of the century, we would be on multiple planets right now. We'd be able to travel through time potentially. And because of everything being degenerated, like we incentivize people being like fucking degenerates.
Oh yeah,
and there's more
100%.
glory. There's more glory, and there's more of an incentive to gamble on memes than there is to have a 9-to-5 with benefits.
Well, no, it's because everybody realized in the 9-to-5 with benefits, you're not gonna get rich. Like, I mean, that's like
you're gonna get poorer actually.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're gonna get a 3% raise every single year, and then that 3% is gonna be, cut down because inflation's 10%, and then like your quality of life is just gonna keep deteriorating. So you're either gonna have to jump from job to job to job, really not get any more valuable skills because where you get the real valuable skills is like staying in a job and kind of working your way up. In reality, like unless you're owning your own business and kind of bringing and realizing your true value to the marketplace, you're just not going to really succeed in this like fiat economy. So like with all this being said, that's why like the meme tokens, the gambling and all that stuff, they know how to sell to people because they know the people's pain points. Bitcoiners, it's where we have a difficult time voicing the difficulty and like voicing
because it doesn't affect because it's not affecting anymore because
it does affect people. You're just
no, I know. I'm saying us. I'm
does.
saying me and you. Like
Yeah.
it's different because it's like what? There's also like a little bit of a trauma from being laughed at and ridiculed for such a long time that like finally when it's like you're successful, like, dude, I was in the trenches for years being made fun of, being ridiculed, seeing like my net worth plummet and holding on while everyone was telling me not to and people were laughing at me and like family members were like looking down on me. My friend groups are making jokes on me. The people who I'm giving pedicab rides to are making fun of my sign, saying I offer discounts if you pay in Bitcoin. You probably had people that were in relationships with their girlfriends, left them and dumped them during these bear markets, and then all of a sudden now their net worth has like doubled from the past all-time high and probably 5 or 6x because they kept hodling. When like those kinds of people, generally speaking, do not have sympathy. Like you lose sympathy when you go through these kinds of experiences. And I think a lot of the problem with Bitcoiners, I think, and maybe I don't know anything, right? Because I'm newer than a lot of other people, right? I started in 2020 getting into this. I do think from what I'm noticing is that there is a lack of there is this like learned lack of empathy that develops over the years, and it's understandable why this lack of empathy develops because you spend years trying to tell people to improve their lives and do this really basic thing and invest intelligently and not do things on leverage and do things the right way, and then when people just repeatedly not listen to you and then all of a sudden you're benefiting substantially and everyone else and the people that didn't listen to you are struggling, like there is no reason to have sympathy. And so I think that like the lack of sympathy that's been developed over the course of years through experiences definitely has played a role in terms of the marketing aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. And I've been talking about this a lot today. I was on another podcast and I did the Bitcoin breakfast at Meteor on Tuesdays here. But anyway, the thing that we've run into is, in a normal company, you have people who are like product developers, you have marketers, and you have salesmen. In Bitcoin, since it's still like only 15 years old, basically everybody that's been in the product aspect has been in the marketing and sales department of Bitcoin. And in any other industry, that is never the case. Like the marketers of these meme tokens, like the Hawk Tua girl, perfect example. She's marketed the shit out of this Hawk Tua coin. Did she run and write any single line of code of that? Guarantee she has no fucking clue what the hell that is, right? And there's a reasoning for that, because in order for her to sell it, she probably doesn't need to know what the ins and outs are. And so I think for Bitcoiners, we get too much in the weeds when we're trying to market and sell this to people, saying like, most people don't want to think about money when it comes down to it.
Yeah, but you know what though? I think that because we get in the weeds, it's why there's a proven track record of success. Hold on, hey Pergy. We're dropping him off where he picked him up too. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're
That's
good.
our driver, Pergy.
Yeah.
Shout out Pergy.
Shout out Pergy. Pergy's a wild animal, man. He's wearing like no shoes, basically, just the barefoot shoes right now, and it's freezing. I don't know how he's doing it.
we're
Riding his bike too. I mean,
yeah, we're gonna get Pergy a microphone.
You better tip this man.
We will too, and you could also tip. Pergy, you got a Lightning wallet?
All right, yeah. I'll tip Pergy some sats after this too.
Yeah.
So maybe he could buy shoes with this bull run. I mean, my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. Yeah, how do you feel about this, the United Healthcare assassination?
Yeah, man, dude, there's a lot of sketchy shit that's come out about that guy.
It feels weird as fuck, right?
Yeah, I mean, this guy, like, I don't know what to believe yet, to be honest, because, like, I'm all over social media, right, with the business, as you are. But it seems like this guy was, like, super intelligent. He was, like, a valedictorian, and kind of something happened with him.
Charismatic
allegedly.
as fuck, jacked.
Yeah.
Could get any girl he wanted, was on pace to becoming an instant millionaire, could have literally revolutionized this entire system and destroyed it because of how intelligent and charismatic he was.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up that he would just shoot this guy in broad daylight.
Yeah, but, like, and he, like, 3D printed his gun. Somebody was like, well, he's like...
That also sounds like bullshit.
Yeah,
I feel like they're just trying to, like, this is just a way to continue doing Operation Choke Point.
Yeah, I mean, that maybe that's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. But from what I've heard, like, either he planned this out very well, and I saw, like, there was a YouTube video that said, hey, he dropped and said, hey, if you're seeing this, I got arrested, and then there's more to come on December 12th, which is, like, 2 days from now? So I don't know. Maybe we'll see something. Maybe that was just, like, some conspiracy TikTok that's going around. I have no idea. But it just doesn't add up, man. And I think it's probably something that's a distraction, for being honest. And I mean, like, the United Healthcare guy, like, some places don't even accept United. I don't know if you saw. It's like they have the highest percentage of denied claims.
Yeah, in the world.
33%. Like, I've literally a third of them. So, I mean, you know, I think the insurance industry has always been fucked. That was actually my first job, was, like, kind of in line with that, where I was, I don't know if you knew this. I was a forensic engineer, so it deals with, like, insurance liability. So
I didn't know that, no.
So anytime somebody, like, sues somebody, they're injured or whatever, they, you know, the insurance you file a claim to insurance, and then if the claim seems nefarious, sometimes they hire a forensic engineer who will do, like, a full-on report. Basically, whether it's like a slip and fall or a car accident. I mean, I lived in Florida when I was doing this, and so, like, Florida's the most litigious state in the world. So a lot of the things that I saw were definitely like, all right, this guy's bullshitting. Some of the times I would be on the side of, like, the plaintiff who was suing, but majority of the time it's like the reason that I would get hired was a lot of these, the insurance companies just realized, like, these guys are just, looking to try to get a quick buck. But anyway, long story short, I think, you know, insurance is always one of those things where, like, it's basically mandatory to have, and they always try to find a way to not pay.
I think that more of these types of shootings are going to be occurring these next couple years, and I think it's going to be to inflame a class struggle.
Yeah, I think they're also going to try to say, it's all Trump's fault too. I think, like, a lot of these things are going to be kind of set up where, you know, they're going to try to, like, outrage it, and, you know, a lot more of these controversies and things like that are going to line up. I mean, my theory too before the election was that the powers that be are going to try to crash the market very shortly in Q1, and Trump's going to have to try to rebuild it because of, you know, all the things that are, because, like, he's just so hated. Now,
I don't believe that theory.
I don't think so anymore. I did think that, I would say, 6 months ago, but the way that Trump's, like, moving all these different people in office and the people that he's
super intelligent.
Yeah.
This is not 2016 Trump.
Exactly. I think if it was 2016 Trump, like, what he was doing, and to Trump, to give 2016 Trump some, like, leeway, like, let's be honest here.
He didn't think he was going to win.
And he decided, like, what, the year of, like, hey, I'm gonna run for president. Then, like, 9 months later, he's president. Now he did it for 4 years. Then he had 4 more years to sit on it and kind of think, hey, if I were to do this over again, how would I do it? And so that's why I'm more optimistic than before. Whereas before I thought he was so hated, and that all these people that, you know, that he would bring in was still kind of members of the swamp. They'd want him out. They want him to look bad, so they would crash the market right away, and Trump would have to try to rebuild it. Now I think, like, a lot of the policies that he's lining out are actually pretty good, except for, I think that the tariffs might maybe hurt it for initially.
If we actually get tariffs, because a lot of times Trump is always a tariff guy, and his thing was threatening tariffs to help strengthen American exports.
Yeah, I mean, he is also like a good. I think he knows how to negotiate. So like I think like him saying that he's going to put extreme tariffs like 100% and all that.
That's all bullshit.
I think so too.
To it. I think that's all bullshit.
I think so too, but I also think like he'll do like, all right, I'm going to say 100%, then he'll put like 20% or 25%, which would still really hurt. But hey, it sounds a lot less than 100%.
It does. But, I don't think we're abolishing income taxes. I don't think, like, the no tax on tip thing, I think that was a campaign promise that's not going to get fulfilled.
How do they even track that, right? I mean, like, I know how you track it. I mean, yeah, it's because
you pay with a credit card, and then the tip shows that you got tipped.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why we need to get back to more of, like, a cash kind of way, or tip in Bitcoin,
Yeah, but then what happens when, me and Kian were talking about this, and this is a ways away. But what happens when the mining pools get super centralized and they
already are?
Yeah, but like are they centralized to the point where like they just won't send transactions that are KYC free?
I don't know about that, but like mining is a very interesting little sector of Bitcoin where everything is free and open source except for mining pools. So like Brain's mining pool, Luxor, like all these mining pools aren't open source. So like I don't know, man. It's already kind of like it's something where these things they're not necessarily like super aligned with
the ethos of Bitcoin. Yeah,
the ethos of Bitcoin, and the reasoning is because like mining is such a cutthroat industry, where like you can't really have everybody using the same free and open source software for mining, which I get, but at the same time, it's like mining is already like kind of like a potential attack vector. Like that's the biggest one, right? The 51% attack is with Bitcoin mining, getting all that shut down. Like that's the biggest threat to Bitcoin.
I mean, the miners can always move elsewhere.
No,
and because the world is so fragmented, like, and the more the US loses its dominance, right? And China's economically kind of in having a bunch of solvency problems too, and they have to print up a bunch of money, and they're literally buying up their own assets with the PBOC, right, or something like that. That could be another reason why they're embracing Bitcoin, because if China starts holding Bitcoin, then they can kind of liquidate their debts as well. So I think that is game theory coming into play. I don't really see why a mining entity would do something like that, because then they would lose, like they would have solvency problems if they did that too.
Yeah, I mean, like mining's just an interesting thing. I think like more government subsidizing mining is going to come through this cycle too, where like more and more governments are going to see it. I mean, Bitcoin Mina, everybody's speculating that one of these, one of these companies has been mining, or countries, excuse me, has been mining Bitcoin, like Saudi. That's kind of my prediction, is like we're going to get a Saudi Arabia has been mining Bitcoin for over a year kind of thing. But I guess time will tell. We'll see. Maybe it's announced while we're recording this. I have no idea.
Another thing too, actually, I could see something like this working too, because if somebody were to want to do like a 51% attack or something along those lines, and they just start and a bunch of massive short positions just get opened up on Bitcoin and on all these mining companies, or on MicroStrategy, or on a Coinbase or some of these exchanges, yeah, they'll lose a bunch of money because they'll deliberately crash the Bitcoin price, but they'll make that back and then some, and then everybody else loses all their money. And then they need some CBDC or something else to kind of counteract that. So there are risk factors. I want to talk to Pierre Richard of Riot Blockchain and figure out how to kind of like mitigate that risk, because that is actually a big risk. I don't see it happening this cycle, but I do see something like that happening in like 10 years or so, or 5 years, depending.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an attack vector. I mean, you lined out Coinbase. I think that's one of the biggest potential attack vectors that we have right now, because of they're custodying so many coins, right? I mean, like these big guys, right? It's how secure is Fidelity? How secure is Coinbase? How secure are these guys? Because, like, let's be honest here, like a major corporation, like even if Microsoft or Amazon wanted to buy Bitcoin and put it as a reserve, they are not buying Bitcoin and holding their own keys. Jeff Bezos is not holding.
No, they're probably using an ETF or something like that, or they're probably going to put it on Coinbase,
or they're going to do it through a custodian, like Fidelity, like Coinbase. Maybe they diversify some. I'm sure MicroStrategy has some on Coinbase, some on Fidelity, diversification within their custodians, but Michael Saylor does not have the keys to MicroStrategy's coins.
I would doubt that. Hey, what do you think about this whole Willow thing? We forgot we forgot to bring that up
Willow
earlier.
thing?
Where Google had this quantum computing thing called Willow, where they can encrypt and crack a bunch of codes super quickly.
Yeah, I think all these big companies are trying to get into quantum computing, which will then lead to more and more companies trying to compete for Bitcoin mining rewards, which is kind of the end all be all. I don't think Bitcoin as it gets, it's just a matter of time, right? With everything here, we're lining out right now, all the chips and quantum computing and all that kind of stuff for Bitcoin mining right now is taking place in manufacturing over in China and Taiwan. We need to get more of that into the United States. More companies need to start producing Bitcoin miners. So I think it's just it's part of what we're supposed to go through, where we're supposed to develop and supposed to increase all the use of quantum computing, and this is just another sign of where we're supposed to go. Computing power is always going to need to keep increasing as we're increasing not only Bitcoin mining and the difficulties increasing, but also with AI and all these other things. We're going to need more and more databases, data housing and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to be, it's not only just Bitcoin mining farms that are going to be, taking up grids. It's going to be I can't even think of the word, but basically databases and storing all that stuff for Amazon Web Services. All these different things are going to be needed to essentially help offset and create costs. And whoever has the most databases around the globe is going to win, and that's where the technology is going to flee to, because it'll be cheaper to access those things and all that. So that's why I think the United States, as far as cloud computing and data servers, data warehousing, that's where they're going, completely forward. And I think all of that is related to quantum computing and our computer storage. And I think that's where Bitcoin mining and AI and all that stuff is just going to push this stuff forward more and more.
Yeah. No, I think so too. I think there's a weird battle between gold and Bitcoin as well.
Gold's doing well for gold.
Gold.
If you want it to double, sure, whatever. That's cool.
I look at gold and Bitcoin kind of interchangeable, where it's during these Bitcoin bull runs, gold always kind of has drawdowns.
Yeah.
And then whenever there's a big drawdown in gold, okay, well, maybe if you have some profits, have a little bit of money in gold just in case some of these awful worst case scenarios wind up happening. At least you have some degree of insurance. I do think as a long-term investment, though, gold is almost like fiat, because the better we get technologically, the easier it is to produce gold. And then there's no finite supply cap of gold. And so when it comes to that, gold can't increase mathematically in value the same way that Bitcoin does. It's just a hedge against disaster.
Yeah, we don't really know how much gold there really is on the market. El Salvador allegedly just found $3 trillion worth of gold.
Yeah.
So, they're going to probably mine that up. It'll take years, but they'll probably mine it and sell it for Bitcoin. So, the way I look at gold is in a drawdown, right? So, in 26, if everything kind of shit hits the fan, maybe it'd be good to have gold then, because gold's not going to go down as far as Bitcoin, right? But it'll be kind of steady. So when shit's hitting the fan, maybe gold's a good investment. But Bitcoin is the true value proposition to hold to keep your purchasing power increasing. I think gold will never keep your purchasing power. It just will not lose it as quickly.
No, I actually think that gold won't increase your purchasing power, but it won't decrease it. It'll just keep it kind of flat.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it just keeps it flat. But the thing about gold is that if you buy a bunch of gold, right, or a small little chunk of gold at the height of a Bitcoin bull run, and you just kind of park it there for 6 months to a year, you actually will make a 20% profit off that gold, and then you could just use that gold to buy way more Bitcoin when the price drops 70% or 60%.
Yeah. I definitely I agree with that. If you want to trade in and out too, you got to
that's what I think. Yeah.
You got to be a lot of really smart with it, right? And I think that would be kind of a smart way to go about it. If I was going to do that, sure, but I just don't really like to look at the markets too much to trade off of it, if that makes sense. But I agree with you. That's exactly what I lined out there is in a downturn, holding gold will keep you even probably.
Yeah, it'll keep you even. And then when you have these massive asset corrections, which you will have in 2026, which always happens during midterm years, no matter who the president is, and because of the divisiveness of Trump, it's going to be really easy. Like, if there's one asset that's going to get demonized to shreds in a bear market, it's going to be Bitcoin, especially with what our political climate is.
Yeah. So wait, let's back up on that. Do you really think people I mean, it was pretty decisive victory that Trump had. Do you really think like people are still like? I mean, you're more in the weeds with it with the pedicab stuff than I am.
I think that it was a decisive victory, but now there's an onus on Trump to actually like make things better. And if people's lives do not start improving over the next couple years, I do think that it will have a pretty like non-zero noticeable impact on the midterm elections. And I think that a lot of people are still are not in the weeds of things. And I think a lot of people are financially illiterate. And I'm not even the most literate person financially. That's why I have people like you coming on to try to like educate me and get a better understanding. I do think that if these asset prices start going down, and if you start seeing a massive gap between rich and poor and asset holders and non-asset holders in 2025, and you start and that becomes kind of like the news narrative for a whole year or so, I do think it's going to divide the public. I think that there's more non-asset holders than asset holders, which will have electoral impacts. And then I think that if you do get a crash in these assets, the asset holders who might not be as knowledgeable about things as you or me might change their political leanings as a result. So I do see there being some kind of incentive to at least try to create a big asset drawdown in 26.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, I feel you on that, where the pressure's basically on. So, like, if Trump doesn't come through with a lot of these things and he doesn't, do his job and, improve the economy, sure, they'll definitely try to pin it on him. And you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, some crazy shit's going to happen where I'm sure they're going to blame it on Trump and say, things are more decisive ever. And,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some racial thing, who knows?
Well, there's a whole, like, swarm of actual Nazi accounts on X.
Yeah, I mean,
which is not organic at all. These are people with frogs and memes and like blank pictures and cartoons and then, like medieval drawings in their avatar, and it's just like if there's if I wanted to do something like the Restrict Act, which we talked about a while ago, or censor the internet or make it so everyone had to like identify themselves on social media, I'd flood a free speech, a quote unquote free speech platform with a bunch of Nazis.
Yeah,
right?
I
mean,
that's
what I would do if I wanted to censor the internet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like another attack vector, right? But it's freedom of speech, right? So, like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's all just like it's all noise, and I mean, you get into the weeds with all the noise, bullshit you have to deal with. But, I mean, the thing is like people believe it though.
People believe a lot of it.
Yeah.
It gets really frustrating having to talk to people about this.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's just like, okay, well, like. Yeah, I don't think people understand the, like, how much, like, we've had to, like, walk on eggshells to just talk to people and, like, the bullshit that goes on, dude. Like, I don't know, man. Like, the way that corporate America is right now with, like, the DEI stuff, like, all this other crazy shit that's going on, like, it is just, it's no way that businesses should perform, and that's why we're getting away from it, right? Like, we're seeing all these companies get away from DEI and all this other stuff. And I think that trend is going to continue because, like, businesses have just suffered from, like, dealing with the bullshit just so people feel better and then, in a sense, like, adding a shit ton of fluff to your company. And it was fine, 2010 to 2020 when things were great and inflation wasn't hot. And everything was pumping, like, whatever, fine, do your D&I, give some people some bullshit jobs, like, add some fluff to your company. But now when it's like, all right, it's time to nut up or shut up, we actually got to make money, be profitable, do all these things because money's harder to come by and inflation's hot and, your CapEx are higher, like, that's when you kind of realize and you get down to the nitty-gritty. And I think that
But this is also going to add to the gap between rich and poor. You want to know why?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
because a
lot
of
asset prices.
No. Aside from that,
why?
Right? Like, how many jobs in existence do you think are even necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think a lot of people are just gonna start to figure out their worth, right? And I think like we saw it a bit in 2020 where a bunch of people just jumped from lateral position to lateral position and got a 30 grand raise. I did it. I was one of those people. It was literally just a lateral thing, and I didn't even work. I worked harder at the job where I was making 30 grand less, and I flip to another one. I mean, but I think like a reversion's going back where people are being forced to go back into the office. You know, the remote work is going down. And I think like more and more people are starting to figure out, okay, like it was fine for a couple years, but I don't think we're going to be back to that position anytime soon. Maybe it opened up the door for a few people for that. Maybe allowed some people to kind of, you know, figure out how they're going to prosper in like a remote environment. But I think majority of stuff is going to revert back to the office and back to the old ways of doing business and things like that.
But also, a lot of the jobs that got added were government jobs and jobs that were taken by illegal aliens.
Yeah.
And so if you start, and I think we should be deporting, right? But if you start, once the mass deportations take effect, you will see, at least for a couple of quarters or for a couple of prints, you will see bad jobs data.
I mean, is the jobs data good now? Would you say that?
On paper, it's good.
Yeah, and I think it's all fabricated.
But
like,
but it will impact. But I'm
now,
saying that it'll impact markets and it'll impact sentiment.
Yeah, look. So like, I was thinking about switching jobs before I went to Green Candle full time, and I was applying to hundreds of jobs every single day. Like, because on LinkedIn they make it super easy. You just click, quick apply, quick apply, quick apply. You could do all these things, and I haven't heard back from 95% of those jobs. So that means to me, and from what I hear from other people in companies, they just leave up these job postings. They don't even look at them. And they're all just phantom jobs. So a lot of these things that they're putting up to all these places, because it's easier to just put these jobs up, and you don't have to, because it's so easy to apply and put jobs up, who cares if they get back to you or not? I mean, like, what does it cost them to have a job posting on LinkedIn? Probably very minimal, if anything, right? Like, it's mostly just the recruiters that are paying for LinkedIn and all these other things. So, you know, these job sites and what all this stuff is, like, it's all just fake numbers, man. And
but I also think that a lot of people are going to wind up getting laid off.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of layoffs. And I just think that when you see a lot of layoffs in conjunction with an asset bubble, the gap between rich and poor is going to grow. And the class struggle that people are already going to experience, they already planted the seed with the Mangione. I just think that this class struggle, like the big narrative that they're going to go with in 2025, because the racial stuff doesn't work anymore, classism. The class struggle is going to be their big government narrative. And the more people wind up losing their jobs, you're going to be blaming Trump. You'll blame Elon Musk. You'll say it's because of Doge. A lot of people who wind up losing jobs, they're going to they may have to like sell certain assets. If they have to start raising rates because of inflation and assets go down and people need their assets to be able to live and pay their bills, all of a sudden now they got to sell things at losses. You could just see a mess. There's just a lot of, maybe I'm like explaining it kind of crudely, but I just see like, there are a lot of factors at play for just a mess of a year in 2026.
Well,
although I do think 2025 is, I do think 2025 is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's why
I think this year is going to be insane. But people need to understand that, like, it's insane, but there's got to be, people need to figure out a way to kind of jump off the boat whenever you feel like you can change your life for the better.
Yeah, and that's why I think we're going to print in 26, because, like, for a government, when it's 4 years of power, there's no real purpose to ever go through like a huge economic downturn because you want to stay in power, right? Like, so what do you, like, for better or for worse, they equate the economic status of everything with the with how the presidential policies are doing. Whether that's, when in reality, like, the reason that Trump's economy could be bad is because of the past 4 years. It's not because of what Trump's going to put in place.
I agree with that,
It's because of, like, the policies that, have been put in place for this time.
Yeah,
so,
and they're going to catch up.
Yeah. So I think it's just, it's going to be interesting, but I think, businesses and everything like that are gonna we're gonna have to get back to like no more zombie companies in reality, and I think that's the bullshit that we've been seeing for the past few years, is that we've been seeing a lot of zombie companies who have tried to emulate what Amazon did, and like Uber's a perfect example. Like, Uber's never made money in its entire existence. It's one of the largest corporations there is. It's run on venture capital money and on the hope that when automated driving comes, Uber's going to be at the forefront for that, to be picking up all these cabs and doing things like that. So, I think like we're just going to get back to the basics and the root of business, and I think that's what makes me bullish on like America going forward, is that, we've had a lot of fluff in this past, 4 to 8 to decade or so, and because of the economic position and the massive amounts of inflation that we face.
Basically since Bush. We've had since Bush.
Yeah, since 2008.
Yeah, since
Or maybe 2004, 2000.
No, earlier. Since basically Bush got into office, like the whole subprime crisis occurred throughout Bush's time in office, and it just came to a head.
Yeah.
In 2007, 2008.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's kind of wild. It's going to be an interesting year. I'm excited that we did this.
Yeah.
I think that the main thing going forward is trying to like use the platform to figure out how do we navigate what's going to happen in 2025, because I think that in order to you could prosper tremendously from these next 4 years, or you could just totally fail spectacularly with nobody helping you. And there's going to be a huge gap between those two types of people. And, I got a bigger account. You got a bigger account now from when we first met each other.
Yeah.
We have this responsibility to try to, speak in good faith to as many intelligent people as we can, to try to get as many people as possible to navigate this new world in a way that benefits us.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just educate people on Bitcoin. It's simple as there's fixed supply, 21 million. The Fed tells you every single year that their goal is to only inflate the currency 2%. Only. That's their goal. If they don't hit their goal, which most of the time they don't, you're going to be losing money. Your company's going to tell you, hey, we'll give you a 3% raise because that'll be 1% better than inflation. But if you really dig down the numbers, we all know that's not true. So do what you can to save in Bitcoin so you don't lose your purchasing power, and you could actually utilize your time for better.
It's a long haul. Always learn. And, the more you can save in better money, the more you learn about financial markets, the more you learn about macroeconomics, the more you want to read, the more you want to eat better food, the more you want to have a better relationship with God, the more you need to keep your communities local. It all kind of ties hand in hand. Nothing happens overnight. It's you make incremental but substantial changes every few years, and you got to look at things from a 3 to 5 year horizon every time you make a decision. Just like what you do now determines your life 3 years ago. Bitcoin literally encapsulates that. So I'm just grateful that I'm kind of where I'm at. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course.
This is our first episode where we actually drove around Austin, which I'm really excited about doing, and I want to continue doing more of it.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be the first one to do it. I appreciate it. Yeah, man, hit that like, hit the subscribe button for my man Alex Stranger. He's one of the hardest working guys in the showbiz.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, and same for Green Candle. But anyway, Brandon, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so Green Candle IT at everywhere you get social media, so Twitter, Nostr, Instagram, TikTok, and then search Green Candle, YouTube, or podcast player, anywhere you get podcasts. Not a tough guy to find.
Not a tough guy. Very easy. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Thank you for coming on, man.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
All right.